And we're live. I set up some new stuff, so hopefully it's working. Oh, we've got Gypsoy on the YouTube. G'day. See if I can respond. Yay, it works. Cool as. Awesome. Hopefully the Instagram stuff will come through. I'm not sure quite how that's going to work, but we'll give it a go. So I hope everybody's had a good week. Slightly better rig this time, and I have it set up through a faster internet connection. So hopefully it's not going to freeze and be all like potato-y for a change. So we'll check it out. I've got a mad delay on the phone. So anyway, we'll just see how this works for a little while. See if we can't go live across multiple platforms. So yeah, we're currently live on Instagram, YouTube, and Twitch, if you follow us on any of those other platforms. Gypsoy, can you give me a heads up and see if my mic's working? Mic check. Excellent. Cool. So I might have to see where the other things. There we go. Cool. Alrighty. So I get, yeah, been a couple of weeks since we've done one. Was kind of waiting for the new internet gear to arrive, so I could set all that up and yeah, do it sort of this way. And so far, it hasn't died. I'm really happy about that. So yeah, oop. It might die if you click the wrong thing though. So I'm not sure how I'm going to see the Instagram chat is the only drama. It doesn't seem to be playing, doesn't seem to be displaying that for me, which is a shame. Yeah, a bit of a shame that it's not working. So maybe if you're over there, come on over here. Come on over to the YouTube. I can answer a bit more. It's not going to freeze and be all... Oop. See, that's my phone. I'm way behind. All right, so I guess we can go over some things that I've got in the book then. If you're following our Discord as well, that's probably a good spot to hit us up this morning for questions. So why don't I check in on there? Shout outs to H.P.O Umbra for getting a bunch of stuff working this week. Shout outs to my friend for helping me out with lighting. And shout outs to Coco Gardens and a couple of other people for helping me out with some tips. So let's go through and see some of the ones. Does planting marigolds assist with keeping bugs away? It kind of can. It's not the most effective sort of IPM in the world. But, you know, it has some sort of a mild effect. You tend to need a lot of them, though. And I have seen situations where I've had mites on marigolds and all the rest of it. So, but, yeah, they're a good thing to have around. It's more their roots actually sort of exude some stuff that's supposedly good at keeping away nematodes. So another one, why water like slowly with a spray bottle versus just sort of pouring it on? You want to ideally be applying your water in a way that sort of simulates nature. So if you've ever watched water soak in during a nice shower, it's not really pulverizing the soil surface. It's kind of just flowing into the soil nice and evenly in little droplets. So that's kind of what you're trying to replicate. And you'll notice that if you try and pour it on too quick, oftentimes it just runs off and around the edges. So yeah, it doesn't really soak in that way. You can apply the same volume of water and have it not really soak into your soil. So watering it in slowly with a spray pack is idyllic. If you've got a lot of soil to water and you can't do that, soft rain wands work well. Just make sure that you're actually using a soft rain wand. So a lot of the ones that are sold are kind of still pretty harsh. Dram are a good brand of them, but there may be some others. So check those out for watering sort of, larger garden beds, big pots, that sort of stuff. Oh, and we've got Herb. G'day, Herb. I think I know Herb. I think I know Herb well. Yeah. So I'm quite stoked that it still hasn't died. It might seem like only a small thing, but when you've had Stone Age internet for so many years, this is a real success. Fantastic. Another one I got this week was, and I get a lot, is how much molasses to put in compost teas or, like microbial brew. So you're wanting to brew something up to feed your soil, be that vermicast, compost, what have you. How much molasses and other ingredients to put in that to kind of get that going. These days, for microbial brews specifically, not nutrient sort of style stuff, I'm really favoring less is more. So not a great deal of molasses, a bit enough to get things started, but not so much that most of the microbes in there have sort of been bred to live on sugar. Ideally, we want stuff that's eating rocks. So yeah, I think I've been using around a tablespoon for every 10 litres, and that seems heaps. And as for brew food, I've been keeping it really simple, just things like wheat bran, alfalfa, of course, sort of ever useful. Yeah, things of that nature, just very simple. And then kind of a more complex carbohydrate for the fungi to sort of digest and live off. And a little bit of rock mineral for them to attach to. Sort of science on whether that works or not, but I find it tends to help. So yeah, that's sort of what I've been using for that style. And having looked at it, I'm getting higher populations. So it might not be as nutrient dense, but at the same time, when I'm doing that, I'm more applying microbes than nutrients. So for that purpose, seems to work better. And keeping the molasses down a bit seems to create a more diverse brew rather than just a lot of bacteria. G'day, Keith. I'll do my best to respond on the thing. This is all a new format for me, by the way. So it's going to take me a little while to get used to it. But, if you've been watching these things for any length of time with me, you realize that's not unusual. So yeah, I've been trying to write stuff down during the week so that I can kind of process it. And yeah, like I said, feel free to kind of hit me up in the comments about if you've got any questions specifically, and I'll get to those as well. I suppose extended to that, like when do I sort of look at doing that kind of thing? Generally, a good time to look at it is if you've just started a fresh garden. So, I mean, as much as we build a really microbe-dense soil, it's still helpful sometimes after it's been sitting in a bag for a while, been shipped halfway around the country sometimes. Yeah. Sorry, I just got a chat from the web dude. All right, so we definitely do have people on the Instagram chat. So I've got to try and figure that out. I don't know how. Come on over here. Maybe I can... Oh, hang on, wait a minute. I might actually have found something here. Okay, so we've got Green and Mason, we've got Cocoa Garden, and we've got Exotic Alchemy on there. But it's probably going to be way behind, if I'm being honest. So I'll try and find all the questions on there, if it lets me see them. G'day, Dark Horse. Yeah, it's weird watching like an instant replay of yourself on a different screen. but we'll try and figure this stuff out. Yeah, so where was I? When to kind of do that sort of stuff. So if you've got a new garden, it's a good time to kind of look at maybe doing something like that in the initial stages, just to kind of really get your soil nice and populated and really well active. It'll get there by itself, but you can speed things up by doing things like that. So setting out your pots, brewing something like that, giving them a good water with that 24 to 48 hours before you even intend on planting. That's a really good way to sort of have your plants hit the ground running. Yeah, a tip from Causa there on use my phone for the comments. So we got it. And Defier's there. G'day, Defier. Okay. See, we'll figure this stuff out. It's not that bad. It just takes a minute and it's going to be slower. We'll figure it out. So yeah, I'll try and see. And Triumphant Trichome has joined. Nice to see you too. What stuff would you brew? It depends. If you're looking at more bacterial stuff, you might want to look at vermicast. If you're looking at a more fungal brew, generally you're probably looking at compost. Of course, it depends on what makes up the compost and how old it is, various things like that, as to whether it is actually fungal. But yeah, that's basically the overall kind of way of looking at it generally. Oh, Umbra's given me the glad the internet is up and running. I mean, it's working. From looking at the video playback on the phone, though, to be honest, I'm still a bit potato, which is a tiny bit disappointing, but you know, we'll get there. And Triumphant Trichome. Oh, no, it's okay, dude. Yeah, I've seen a bunch of your posts, dude. Looking good. The garden's looking nice. Everyone's gardens are looking nice lately. It's great to see. So yeah, populating your soil initially with something like a heavily dense bacterial brew and then planting straight into that. It's not going to necessarily increase the nutrient content of your soil, but it will increase the microbes. Gives you a good chance to wet your soil down initially. And why I like to do that 24 to 48 before I plant into it is so that the soil drains to a really nice field capacity. And then it's just plant water enough to settle the soil around the roots, and you're generally good for a little while. That works quite well. Oh, the green room and frosty green trees. Cool. Nice to see you guys. I can see you on here, but you know, you can see me on here. Yeah. So I'll try and bounce between the Instagram and the Discord, but I might miss a few things. So just at me wherever you're at. At me wherever you're at, and we'll get to you. What's up, man? I don't know whether to get too close to this camera because it's like panning, so it'll like do some weird stuff. But hello, how you going? Dark Horse, it's 22 degrees. There you go. Wow, nice. Nice temps. Yeah, it's probably a bit warmer in this room at the moment. I've got a hell of a lot of lights going. But, you know, that's okay. I feel like a plant. I'm under all the lights. Outback South. How you going, dude? And Jack, cool. Cool. Nice to see everybody. Yeah, okay, so I guess I've got questions working now. Just hit me up in there on Instagram or there on the other things. Wicked. This is really cool. I'm really, really stoked about that. Shout outs to Space for bringing me my internet. Brought to you by Space. So in lieu of questions from people, how is the pumpkin patch going? Oh, the pumpkin patch is actually starting to improve. It's been the bane of my existence this season, trying to grow a giant pumpkin. But it's actually started to turn a corner. So it's all of a sudden, with the warm temperatures started to take off, it's sort of growing around a couple of inches a day, putting out new runners. It still seems to be not probably the best vine I've ever grown, but yeah, it's finally actually kicked in there and it's taking off. So yeah, hopefully I can do an update on that soon when it's filled in the bed a bit more and looks a little bit more impressive. Green and Mason, shout outs to a nice frothy wormcast tea for sure, for sure. Frosty Green Trees, tent is sitting at 27 and 24. That's beautiful, man. That's all awesome. But Outback South has 45. You drew the short straw, dude. Sorry about that. Yeah. Okay, and over here we've got... Oh, and we've got some spam. That's okay. That happens too. I don't eat it though. I don't eat pork. Dave William. Is no-till possible indoors without doing complete soil analysis all the time? Yes, of course. I mean, if you've ever grown a veggie garden outside and just grown vegetables continually, adding inputs back in and all the rest of it, that's kind of what you're doing. You can go further than that and you can get analysis done to tell you what to add, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, as long as you're not adding inputs that have huge amounts of heavy metals and all that sort of stuff, and your pH is good, you know, within range, you're probably fine. But if it worries you, then, you know, for sure, it's not that expensive to get a panel done. Getting a full panel done can run you a little bit, but I mean, if you're not getting it done all the time, that's certainly something you can do. Oh, we've got Aussie Autos. Nice. And Grow Green Daddy. Nice to see everybody. Yeah. So yeah, I would say that no-till works better in bigger pots, whether that's sort of something that people are looking at or not. But I mean, small pots, it's very easy for a plant to use up a lot of the available resources, and then it's very hard to get that back in there just by top dressing. So that's what I would say, is that it works better in bigger containers. The bigger the container, the better it works, because obviously the plants are never really taking out enormous amounts of anything, ideally. There's heaps of places you can send stuff to, Frosty Green Trees. Yeah, there's a bunch of different places. They do them differently though, depending on the lab. For organic soil tests, you want like a paste one done, rather than just acids, so that you can actually get an idea of what's really all there. But there's places, just Google it. There's a heap of different labs, varying in quality and varying in what they can do. Some of the better ones can actually do microbial testing as well, so they can tell you what the CFU of your kind of mix is. Difficult to do that with sending stuff in the mail, because I mean, you dig it up, you put it in a bag, you put that in an express post bag, you send that to them. Australia Post has it for who knows, and you know, hopefully 24 to 48 hours, but it could be longer. Who knows what they do with it in the meantime. So that could certainly affect the, you know, the bioassay of it, I guess. But what I would say is that, you know, a lot of those metrics, they're good to know, but at the same time, it's, people have done it for a long time without that sort of stuff too. So it's not something that you've sort of gotta, if you're a DIY guy, fascinate yourself with, unless it's something of interest, and then get into it. Can be good for knowing sodium levels and stuff though. So if you're using a lot of things like kelp, there's just particularly stuff from the sea tends to come with it, a lot of sodium depending on the product. So that can be good to know, so you're not locking things out. Greened Out team, nice to see you, dude. Greened Out team for Canna merch and various other things. They sent me some nice stickers and a beanie and a hat, so thank you. Tommy Ilfigure and BJ Weber, Nice to see you. And Grow Green Daddy's all about the heavy metal. Yeah, heavy metal music's fine. Yep, Triumphant Tricone. There are even some home test kits you can get. They're, varying in accuracy. There was one that they used to sell years ago called the Lamotte. The reagents for that are hard to get now. I've used that one a fair bit. There's other sort of ones on the market now that use refraction and a bunch of different things. The investment in those is pretty heavy though. So, it's probably cheaper if you're just doing it every so often to get it done by a lab. And yeah, definitely nice to see everyone here. This is very, very cool. It probably when I drink water now, it probably sounds extra clear and crispy on the mic, which I'm sure is a delight for everyone. But I need to hydrate in here. It's hot as hell. Who was that talking about sub-irrigated planters? Grow Green Daddy, yeah. Yeah, no-till sips. So that's what some people are doing now. They're just setting up sub-irrigated planters with a largish mass of soil and then just simply top dressing that and feeding it that way continually over time. Works really well. Seeing some really great results from that and really low maintenance, user-friendly kind of a system. The setup for it's kind of a bit of work, but once you've got it set up, very low maintenance. Oh, and Caspar, it's nice to see you, dude. Yeah, cool. Yeah, well, I'm on here, so pick my brain. Just thoughts. Collecting castings and making tea, yeah. I think that's where I was up to before I got sidetracked, as I often do. Castings versus compost. Bacterial versus fungal. It depends what you're trying to get from your soil. Some people favor different ones for different phases. I tend to try and brew them separately rather than trying to do them in the one, because I tend to find that the bacteria just have if it's bacterial mostly, they have a tendency to just take over it. The fungi are slower moving. Again, a good case in point for not using heaps of molasses, because the bacteria are super quick to feed and respond to that. The fungi are too, but they're a bit slower. Cookie Monster, when should I stop using Mojo if the tomatoes are getting close to finishing? Really, you can kind of run it up to the week of pulling them out. It doesn't really have a withholding period. I normally cut it out, like if I'm going to pull them in week 8, I normally cut it out around the end of week 7, just to sort of stop any reflushing of any kind. Not that it really has a huge potential to do that, but on some cultivars and under high temps it can. So yeah, just stop it then the week before harvest. But if you end up running it up to the day of or a couple of days before, it's not going to hurt anything at all. The green room, what do we have planned for 2023? Well, that's some lovely compliments. A bunch of stuff. A bunch of stuff planned. We'll see if we can get it all done. There's some people lately that are helping me, which is fantastic. That's enabling me to actually do some of the things that I've got envisioned. So, you cannot be a jack of all trades and a master of all trades as well. It's an unrealistic expectation of any one human. So, yeah, I got a bunch of stuff planned. We'll see if it all happens. The next thing that we're probably focusing on is the next expo, which looks like it's at the end of March. So yeah, Bris Vegas. We're coming. Yeah, so apart from that, probably not too much I can speak on right at this time, but expect the new Grow Dirt and Gorilla Grow Dirt labels to start rolling out in the not too distant future because they're done now. Some of those have been committed to test print, so bit of an upgrade, whatever you want to call it. A glow up, let's call it that. There you go. Very, very TikTok. But yeah, thank you very much. And it's really nice to see the expansion of your shop over time too. If you're on the coast, the green room, absolutely kill it. Huge range of stuff there. Yeah, check it out. Pest management, Tommy Ilfigure. What have we got here? So IPM versus treating it when I see it. Look, basically, I find that if I'm using antimatter, which has chitosan in it, and if I'm using Green Supreme, which has the aloe extracts in it, I just don't find that I have pests that often. That's just the reality of it. So I mean, whether you would call that an IPM or not, technically it's preventing things, but I don't really find the need to go much further than that. Sometimes something will drift in on the breeze and you've got to combat thrips or something that's kind of made its way into the garden. And that's when you can kind of go to, the first thing I would probably go to is just an essential oil spray. Nothing too severe or savage, just put some down pressure on them, make the foliage less palatable to them. That'd be kind of the first step as I saw something. But as I say, whether it's the mild soaps in Green Supreme, whether it's just the action of washing under the leaves, because when I spray, I try and make sure that I get up under the leaves as well as over the top. Whether it's just that in conjunction with the effect that chitosan and the aloe extracts have on the plant, I'm not entirely sure, but I do know that I just don't see pests. So mites and things like that are basically a non-issue. I also tend to find that strong, fast-growing plants in a really healthy soil that has what they want, they just don't seem to be that appetizing to pests. They really tend to jump on stuff that's weakened in some way, shape, or form. So yeah, that's what my personal approach is. But I tend to not want to go overboard with things. And Outback, yeah, Gorilla Grow Dirt, yeah. This blend this season is nuts with the peanuts and rye salad at the Chucky biochar. Good fun. There's some people rocking that hard. And GGD, yeah, come by, man. Come by. Well, I'm not sure how social distancing works anymore, but I'm pretty sure that I can just cram people in the booth. So just come by, cram yourself in there. It'll be all good. You're all welcome. Cobain Carter, nice to see you. And yeah, the Brizzy show should be lit. It should be good. I mean, they're always fun. Drop there. Nice to see you, dude. Nice to see you. I don't know if you've been on the website recently, but Umbra, H.P.O Umbra, has done some really nice looking mock-ups of all the different products. So yeah, check that out if you haven't. So many questions, so little time. We're all good. I'll find them. It's multitasking, like, and I'm also breathing. So technically I'm doing 3 things at once: talking, reading, and breathing. Oh my God. I might pass out over here. What's the best way to keep things from going anaerobic? Really, it's your oxygenation levels. So most people are under oxygenating, and it looks like you should be fine. Like, you've got 3-4 air stones in a 20-litre bucket and you've got, 15, 18 litres of water in there, but it's just not enough. It really needs to be just churning and heavily oxygenated, bubbles everywhere through it, a high amount. So really how you stop it going anaerobic is keeping it well oxygenated. If you do that, then it shouldn't go anaerobic. But of course, overfeeding bad compost or using poorly sourced vermicast, it's about what you put in. So you can't start with a poor quality material and expect it to turn out good just because you've fed it high quality ingredients. You're growing out what exists in that material. So if you collect leaf mold, or you collect compost or vermicast, even soil, you can make dirt teas. You're multiplying what's in there, ideally. So yeah, that would be the thing, is you need to obviously set up an environment for that where it's actually going to propagate the right stuff. There is always the chance to, and people talk about this, of breeding E. coli and various things like that, which are ever present. And yes, you can do that too. So probably don't drink your compost tea. Myself, I've never made myself sick that way, but like with any of this organic stuff, if you're immunocompromised or something of that nature, exercise some caution around it, because you are dealing with live microorganisms. And without a high-powered microscope, you don't necessarily know what those organisms are. Odds are they're good, but you don't know. Generally, though, if it smells good, it's good. As far as compost teas go, if it smells at all bad, just throw it away. Start again. Something went wrong. It's not worth tipping on your garden at that point. It's pathogenic, so it'll only do harm. I hope that helps a bit, though. But yeah, teas are a bit of a thing. A lot of people don't have the facilities set up to really brew them well. If you're going to go air stones, really try not to go over 10 litres. So don't brew more than 10 litres of liquid at a time, because that, even with a really a good air pump, it's hard to keep it through there. Look at an airlift brewer. The design for those by Tim Wilson is really easy to make, but that will oxygenate your water to an ideal level. So you can build that with some simple stuff from the plumbing section at Bunnings. Oh, thanks, Drop Air. How reg do we do the lives? I mean, I'll probably get back, now that I've got the cool internet and stuff and got it all set up, I'll probably get back to doing them once a week, man. So it was like I just needed some time to get it all set up. It's still not a terrific rig, but at the same time, I think we're miles ahead of some of the ones that I was doing last year. So yeah, I'll see you next Sunday. How about that? Not probably. I'll see you next Sunday. Oh, Danny Dingo's there. How you going in that? And Just Organic. Cool as. Yeah, cool. Yeah, so look, if you want to brew teas, research setting them up well, because it is a little bit more than just chucking a bunch of stuff in a bucket, throwing a couple of air stones in there. I know that that's a lot of what is kind of put on the net about doing it, but when you look deeper into it, you really have to do it in a certain way where there's no anaerobic spots in that container. The whole thing is moving around. And my thoughts on it personally, I don't like brewing things in bags at all. I like to put the ingredients in the tea and have the whole thing churn around and interact with the water. Because even if you've got an air stone in the bag, you've still got anaerobic areas in the bag. It's not really interacting with that whole liquid. And yeah, that means that I've got to strain it at the end. I oftentimes don't even strain it. I'll just kind of pour it onto garden beds. But yeah, I think you get a higher quality, more microbial dense brew that way, if that's what you're aiming for. Danny Dingo is great in that, so awesome. Cool. Shout outs to the Weed Nerd for joining us, or it's W33D. So cool. Yeah, Keep the questions coming. Oh, yeah. So what can you do if you want to maximize, boost your microbe content, but you don't really have the access to teas? You don't want to muck around with all that mess. What I've been doing lately is actually taking some herb superb or some sort of top dressing, pre-feeding compost with it, and then just putting that on top of the soil, which really has been working quite well, very user-friendly, and doesn't require a bunch of mess. It also, in times when, say you've got a sub-irrigated planter or your plants are just not requiring you to water, well, it makes it hard to water in a compost tea, whereas top dressing, something like that, can be done virtually at any time. So that's been something that has been working quite well. Would I brew a tea with antimatter and dark matter? Look, the mycorrhizal stuff really is better added at the end. So right when you're about to take that compost tea and apply it to your garden, add it then. Or even done as a separate application a day or so afterwards. I think that's preferable, because a lot of those things are designed to live on and around roots. It's not really the environment for them in there. And yes, you're going to multiply some things, but you might not multiply exactly what you want. So I think if you're looking at taking something and inoculating it, just putting those spores and propagules into a solution, watering those in, and then allowing them to grow out in the soil, which is a more idyllic substrate for them, is a better way of going about it. What you could do is take soil compost / proppy compost would be better, inoculate that weeks to months before, and then use that compost. You could inoculate it with IMO, you could inoculate it with a variety of different things. Even stuff that's outside and in contact with the ground will have natural indigenous microorganisms from your area in it anyway. So you can do that, but that's a better way of doing your mycorrhizal drenches, rather than trying to kind of brew them in the tea itself. Can we get Ant on the live? I might be able to do it if you can come in through the YouTube, dude. If you can come in through the YouTube, I should be able to make that happen. An Outdoor Ninja, how you doing, dude? Nice to see you. I'll copy that, and then I'll send that. I'll try and send that. I don't quite know how to do that, if I'm being honest, though, Ant. Bro, can you help me? Can you do the Google? Yeah, the tea talk. So for a lot of people, it's really one of those things where it can help, but it can also hurt. So I don't recommend it to everybody. I don't recommend everybody do it, or that it even is a necessity. I kind of see it as like second tier organics gardening stuff, because you're getting into a bit of a deeper level of it when you're talking about effectively making your own inoculants. So yeah, that's the thing with teas, is they can be good, but if they're done wrongly, then they can actually hurt things more than they can help. In the loop. Nice to see you, dude. And would I brew basically a dirt tea and throw some herb superb in there? Yes, I've done that heaps. With herb superb, though, what you're more doing there is making a nutrient drench. So it's kind of important to understand that things like blood meal, bone meal, feather meal, those sort of amendments aren't water soluble. And given the amount of time, 24 to 48 hours, that you're typically brewing these teas, these aerated compost teas, you're not going to achieve full-on hydrolysis there. So you're really not going to break down things like the bone, things like the proteins to amino acid forms. yeah, it takes more time than that. So what you're effectively doing when you're soaking those amendments in water and kind of aerating that with some sort of microbe sources, yeah, you're going to get a bit of conversion, but more what you're doing is you kind of, all the stuff that'll float and be flowable in water, which therefore is very fine micron and easy for things to digest and break down, of course gets watered in. So it's not that those things are of no benefit, but they're different to a microbe tea where, I mean, you could aerate the herb superb for basically 12 hours, and that would be enough to kind of get into the water most of that fine particulate and then water it on the garden. You're not focusing on the microbes there. With the compost tea, you need to follow the amount of time to brew those specific organisms and feed them the right stuff. So they prefer simple foods, basically, whereas the other things are useful more from a nutrient perspective. Umbra's on it for me. Thanks, dude. All right, so I will see if I can reply to him. I think you just click that link, man, and then that should let you join. Hopefully that's actually you. If not, I'm going to cancel you. Little shed grows, nice to see you. It's weird because on Instagram, like I'm way off center, but on my view, I'm like sitting right in the middle of the screen. Yeah, so apply your aerated microbe teas in times when you need to add life to your soil's not, it's underperforming. You know, all the food is there, it's just underperforming. So yeah, apply those sorts of things when you need to reinvigorate and sort of add a charge of life to it. If you're looking more at adding nutrients, then that's when you can look at kind of doing some of those other techniques. The two get kind of confounded, but they're different purposes and different techniques for doing those. Really, for applying your nutrients, top dressing is going to be probably your best bang for buck and going to give you the longest return on those sorts of things. So yeah, that would be kind of what I would suggest too, is, and you can use them both interchangeably. So you could say, get your soil going to a higher level with aerated teas, and then apply some top dressings on top of that to kind of further stimulate everything. There is overlap. YouTube not letting you. All right, well, I'll figure it out for next time, Ant, and you can show us, because yeah, he brews a lot of teas to look after his stuff, and also uses sub-irrigated stuff. Grin and Mason also uses sub-irrigated planters and brews various different teas. So yeah, there's a lot of people using that. ATG on the YouTube. And yeah, what's up to Dankden, all the way from Western Australia? Nice to see you as well. He's a pro grower, one of the dudes rocking some H.P.O gear on Instagram. And what have we got there from Greened Out Team? Aquarium heater. There you go. Yep, so that's actually pretty good. So you've got a heater there to keep it at the right temp, pond pump to keep it all stirring around, and some aeration. So that's good. You can even get dissolved oxygen testers on eBay and places like that. They're not tremendously expensive. So if you're someone that's really into doing this stuff, a microscope and something to measure the amount of oxygen in your water to check that it's actually at the right levels is some tools that you can pick up that'll really help you. And our TG was on, I can't see whether it's YouTube or Twitch, but one or the other. Yeah, I'll figure this out. I'm getting the hang of it. It's fun though. Like it's actually pretty cool. I'm surprised it's working. Up early, it's 8:30. Yeah, well, I like starting them at 10:30 now, man. So yeah, I was trying to leave them until later, but then by the time I'm off here, it's like the day is over. So sorry, dude, you got to get up earlier. But I'll keep them on the internet now. Green and Mason likes teas for a quicker delivery of nutrients. So yeah, again, when you're getting the finest of the particulate matter, the finer it is, the quicker it's available. That's generally the way this stuff works. On a really rudimentary level, you could sort of say that microbes have tiny mouths, and so if you break it down to tiny pieces for them, it's easier for them to eat. It's kind of what it is. There's probably a bit more to it than that, but that's about probably what it is. And yeah, I'm a fan of top dressing. I like the utility of it, but there's specific ways you can go about it to really maximize that. Dank Dan. Well, don't worry. We can go over this stuff. I mean, I've got some people helping me film some things now too. So yeah, there'll be more content. It's just, I've only just got non-Stone Age internet. It's the first time ever that I've had like more than probably 20 megabytes per second. It's yeah. So yeah, it's really fast now. And Frosty Green Trees is off to make some more sub-irrigated planters today. So yeah, hell yeah. Everyone's getting into those lately. And really for low maintenance and with soil, that's what a lot of people are wanting. So a water-only soil in a sub-irrigated planter that's of decent volume, it's pretty hands-off. As long as you keep that res topped up, there's really not a lot to add. Over time, you're going to want to top dress that and add some things back in, but yeah, pretty low maintenance. And no parts to break and things to dial in. It's self-dialing, self-maintaining for the most part. Chuck P, nice to see you. Oh, Scrog. Oh yeah, cool. All right, well, yeah, get me on there. You know I love to talk. Yeah, we now have dark matter internet. Yeah, yeah. You can check for us. You just need a special IP address to find us. Yeah, it was Sky Muster. That's what I had before Dank Dan, and so I've just now got Starlink. So yeah, I don't have an affiliate code for you for Starlink though. But if you want that, you just got to talk to Elon. He won't take my calls. MST Claire. Yeah, that's the thing is, so Triumphant Trichome makes a good point. That stuff is going to make its way into your soil profile. It doesn't necessarily need to be mixed all the way down there to kind of get through. And even though they're insoluble nutrients, mycelial web, worms, if you've got them in your soil, all of that's going to work towards making that available in the soil structure. It just takes time. So, and as those things are broken down through the acid enzymes that microbes excrete, they become they become water soluble and bioavailable to the plant. So even though top dressing doesn't put it specifically around the roots, it still makes its way there. Cannon Ninja's got the right idea. Yep. Grows Clover. Shout outs to Grows Clover. B. Allen. I can't say I've actually looked at that one. I've been looking at sub-irrigateds a lot lately, just in general. But you'd have to sort of like send me a link or something on that specific one. I haven't actually looked on that specific one, dude. But you've always got some new tech for me to sort of look up. I like that. Yes, that's pretty cool. But having talked to some people and seen the results they're getting with the sub-irrigated stuff, it's kind of hard to argue against it at this point. And a lot of what people find really difficult to get into when they start with living soils, is watering them correctly. To the point of I mostly advise people to hand water because watering systems, they take time to get right. Even the best ones, the automatic ones that have got sensors, they still need dialing in, which for beginners can be difficult because they don't know what they're dialing. So manual watering has been something I've been recommending, but the sub-irrigated stuff is so effective, particularly in veg. The veg times are just next to nothing. But just the no moving parts and the fact that it's self-regulating makes it really, really appealing. Yeah, 20 litres is fairly limited. That's sort of like I consider that sort of the floor for good organic grows. There's people that defy that completely. Like Satoshi 420, he grows in, I think, 8 to 13 litre pots and just smashes it, but he does supplement a lot. So it's far from water only, but it is still organic. So it's kind of whatever works for you. That works for his particular circumstance because he likes to just be able to water willy-nilly without kind of having to really think about and care for the soil. But yeah, it's not the most sustainable or the most low input, but it works. Here we grow. Nice to see you. Here we grow. I hope you're feeling better, actually. Yeah, that's right. Maddie's actually been under the weather a bit lately. So yeah, I hope you're feeling better, dude. Starting to be on the mend a bit and back out there. Terrible start of the new year. And Coco Garden, yeah, talk to Mason. He's the dude on that stuff at the moment. I consider he's really gone to a lot of lengths to build and research them. So thoughts on top dressings versus teas with regard to availability? Yeah, the nutrient tea soak amendment soaks, they will work quicker. Things like rock minerals, so if you're putting a bit of Stone Age in your soaks, which I like to do sometimes, definitely going to be more bioavailable than the top dressing. That's more slow release, so you won't have the delayed initial response if you're sort of brewing it or aerating it, applying it via water. Nice. So Maddie's back in the game. See, good immune system. Back in the game. Nice, man. Nice. And yeah, there's a bunch of those sort of different things at the moment, but I think that is the way that a lot of people are going to be doing their stuff, is watering from the bottom up rather than from the top down. All right, so how long have we been on? We've been on for nearly an hour. Well, time flies when you're having fun. And it still hasn't died. It's worked the whole time. I'm still slightly potato that it has worked the whole time. I drank like 4 cups of water. Okay, so frosty green trees doing 12-12 from seed or from clone in 20 litre pots. It works. It really does. If you do your clones in, say, solo cups full of light soil, the Superstarter is great, but I prefer the Superstarter in things about tree tube size, punnets, trays, that sort of stuff. For things solo cup size, I really like the light soil, and it's a bit more open and a bit more chunky for clones, and they can grow on in it for a little while. So solo cups full of light soil, get a nice decent root system on them, get them to the point where they're kind of vigorously growing, but they haven't started to really explode yet. Throw those in a 20 litre pot of dirt and have at it, and basically just rip them right from the go. So 12-12 right from the start. That works really well. If you try and veg them too long in that 20 litre pot, you're going to run out of steam. You'll probably hit the wall about week 3 or 4 of flower, and you're going to be kind of chasing it with amendments and teas the whole time, or liquids, whatever, but probably not quite catching it. you might stay ahead of it, but you might be just kind of chasing it the whole time. If you just kind of get them to that point where they're really good, like really vigorous, transplant them well to where they don't go through shock, maybe give them 24 to 48, and then just let them rip. That's a good way of going about it. And final mix, I would be looking at probably using full spec for that. Or if they were, intended on going outside guerrilla. There are circumstances where if you were doing that with autos or whatever, where you might choose light, but it works. That technique works really well with the full spec, and 20-litre pots are very waterable, especially by about midway through flower. You'll be able to water those very regularly, even up to 5 times a week if you want to sometimes, if they've done well enough and they've filled the container. Stinkle romp, how you going? Yeah, beds work too. That's another thing. I tend to prefer containers over beds. Beds don't quite drain as well as I would like, because they're kind of raising the water table right up to where the water table is really close to the sort of surface roots. But some people really like them. So yeah, there's certainly a preference thing. A lot of this sort of stuff is preference. And generally it's really about overall soil volume than it is about the shape of the container. Ganja Mystic, nice to see you. DK Genetics, nice to see you too. And yeah, thanks everyone for dropping in. Yeah, so I guess it's turned into like a tea and sub-irrigated planter chat. Top dressings, teas, and planters, yeah. No problem at all. So yeah, I think I'll stay on for another few minutes and then just kind of leave it on a high note. So if there's anything else, any burning questions that you just absolutely need to know, or video ideas or anything else, just there. As I said, we have a company Discord now that's been going off. We have a video, like a video ideas section. Put them in there if there's something that you just desperately need to see me do or explain to you in a more clear fashion. Get at me. Holler at your boy. Has anyone ever tried grafting? Yes, grafting is something that I absolutely love. So the first grafting book that I ever read had this potato that had a tomato grafted on top of it, like the Tomako or something like that Homer did. But yeah, I was fascinated with that, and I did it, and it works. Like I got high marks for that. But like it works. You can actually graft a tomato onto a potato. So you get potatoes below ground, you get tomatoes above ground. Perfect. Totally awesome. It was a technique that was being used in South Australia back probably in the 90s, when they had like a 3 plant minimum per household. And so people were putting multiple varieties on one mother plant rootstock so that they could then take clones of various different ones, kind of like those fruit salad trees, if you've ever seen those. So yeah, it's a thing. Like it definitely is a thing. They don't do well over the long term. And if you've ever had one of those fruit salad trees, they're similar. The most vigorous tree or plant on that is going to be what becomes the dominant graft, unless you're kind of really maintaining that regularly. But definitely very cool, and it definitely works. You can definitely graft things. Another thing you can do actually is, say, a plant that is an indoor plant that isn't adapted to outside that you would like to grow. You can grow a seed stock, locally adapted rootstock, graft your clone variety on top of that, and then you have effectively the resilience of the local rootstock and the clone or the genetics of what you want above ground. So that's kind of, advanced level stuff that you could kind of get into. And grafting cactus is fun too. If you've got slow growing cactus, like some of the ones that take forever to grow that we really want to move faster, grafting those is a great way of kind of speeding those along. 4x4 sip. That's a big one, but you can do it. Triumph and Trichome. I think I've just got to send those to Umbra, and he uploads those or something. So yeah, I've got them. Like I've got them at the moment, man. Just send me a DM and I'll send them out to you. I'm sorry, I've taken forever on that project. There you go. Triumphant Trichome has seen 28 strains grafted on one plant. That's got to be the most solid effort ever. Okay, so advice from Green and Mason there, 20 gal sip and you'll fill a 4x4 with one plant. So yeah, that's solid advice. I think the thing to keep in mind with those is they're so effective that you might have to reduce numbers and also veg for less time, that sort of stuff, because they're gonna be monsters. When they're getting everything they want all the time and the environment's ideal, you can expect some pretty insane results. Scrog a fruit salad tree. It's probably not a bad idea. You could maybe espalier one up a wall or something. The most no-till way to transplant. I mean, whenever you transplant, you're going to be disturbing your soil. And this is why I think that, like, what you really need to aim for, if that is your aim, is to aim for low till. Like, basically that's what you're going to be doing, because if you ever dig that at all, you've tilled it a little bit, right? Like in a technical sense. How much that actually impacts everything, because as much as it sets things back a long way, in some studies, in other studies, things bounce back incredibly quick too. In fact, in mycology, like when you're growing certain fungi, breaking up the fungi when it's colonizing something is a technique of getting it to actually colonize more thoroughly. So I would say just the most no-till way of transplanting would be to only disturb that which you have to transplant and then put it back. In reality, most people are more doing low till than no till. And there are circumstances where you till until you don't have to till, and then you no-till. To get to no-till, you've got to till sometimes. So that's kind of a less popular thing, a less popular probably opinion, but it's the fact. Sometimes soil needs to be worked for it to actually work. 3-week veg, Mason reckons, on most cultivars, which, yeah, that's quick. That's quick. That's probably shaving a week off most people. And some people veg for even longer. Some people veg for 4 or 5 weeks. So yeah, okay, that's a good way too. Plant an empty pot there. But you've still got to dig it to plant the empty pot, don't you? So you've still had to dig at some point. So yeah, it's hard to garden and also never actually garden into it. I suppose you can always build above it. You could build above it and then it just grows down into the soil and then you're not disturbing it at all. Maybe that's what you meant. Yeah, clay is a good example. Sodic clay, which you can try and get to actually bind together and form balls and stuff with gypsum. That's an example of when working it is a better thing to do, trying to get some oxygen and stuff into that rather than just leaving it. Or, of course, building above it. Hey, Katie. And frosty green trees. Yeah. So you still got to dig. So you're always going to have to dig. That's the nature of gardening. Can you dig it? Yeah, so it's always going to be low till, unless you've got some spots where you're setting them up and kind of like permanently leaving them. And then you can have an entirely no-till scenario. But it is hard to do. And it's not to say that people that dig their soil either have any less results. A lot of what I would do is actually, when re-amending, is fully digging it through. Certainly not no-till. Certainly grows great plants. So it's kind of one of those things, the different techniques for different scenarios, I think. Keith, yeah, so you're hitting me up about the chart too. So that's got to be done. It should have been done ages ago. But yeah, it's done. It's just got to be uploaded. So that's my bad. I'll fix it. Yeah. So yeah, some solid tips from Mason there on timing too with the sips. In general, the advice seems to be just less time, less of everything, which for most people should suit their workflow just perfectly. Yeah. So Osgrog digs around too. I do it. I do. I dig soil. So it's one of those things. But I mean, if you're using smaller pots, you kind of have to. It's hard to get a big, healthy plant grown in a smaller container and then just use top dressings to get it back there. You generally tend to find that crops 2 and 3 are just very lackluster and low yielding. So yeah, or at least I find. Other people might have different results if they're using a lot of inputs, say, through the first cycle. But that's not generally my workflow. A larger container, say 40 litres, I'll probably just be digging that through. If we're like 100 litres, then I'm probably just top dressing that, and it effectively becomes no-till. Where you're, like I said before, your ability to no-till is really about the volume of soil that you've got. Because it's about how much carbon and nutrients you're taking out versus how much you've got to replenish back in, and whether you can get there just with top dressing and all the rest of it versus having to add a decent portion of it back into it and kind of recook it. It just depends on your workflow. Okay, cool. So Umbra's onto it. Thank you. I'll send those over. So yeah. And Patrick, nice to see you. Cool. That's not Patrick Starfish. That's Patrick 6XF. Alrighty. Well, fascinating chats. Thank you very much. I'm super stoked again that it decided to work the whole time. I don't think there was really any technical issues, but yeah, thank you for tuning in across multiple platforms. Epic. If you just tuned in and I'm about to go, I'm sorry about that, but I'll catch you next time. So I'll see you next Sunday at 10:30, and we'll have another one then. Until such time, happy growing.